This podcast is sponsored by developmentaid.org, your gateway to international tenders, grants, and the largest job database in the aid sector. Secure free registration and access funding opportunities, calls for partners, exclusive insights, and weekly news digest. Become a member today to achieve your sustainable development goals.
Hello everyone and welcome to Development Aid Dialogues. I'm your host, Nisham Allam. Today we are talking about how artificial intelligence or AI is changing the way healthcare is delivered through telemedicine and telehealth. These digital services are becoming more popular worldwide, helping people get medical advice and care remotely. We will explore what AI can do and what it cannot replace, and what the future might hold for these important healthcare tools. Today's guest is Professor Krishna Ganapathy, neurosurgeon and distinguished professor at the Tamil Nadu Dr. MGR Medical University. He is an emeritus professor at the National Academy of Medical Science and former WHO digital health expert. He also served as the president of Telemedicine Society of India and the founder director of Apollo Telemedicine Networking Foundation. Professor Ganapathy, thank you for joining us again on Development Aid Dialogues. It's a pleasure to have you back as we explore these exciting and important questions facing healthcare today.
Thank you, Nishala, for having me in this podcast. Before we go into the specifics, I have a confession to make. I used AI in getting the raw data for some of the highly technical questions which I presume you're going to ask me in the next few minutes. However, after summarizing the world literature in these areas, I am predominantly going to use my God-given NI, natural intelligence, native intelligence, to give you my personal perspective, which could be perhaps biased. I belong to the 20th century, trained in the BC era, not before Corona, but before computer. Reviewing my 5 decades of hands-on experience in healthcare in India as a neurosurgeon and a digital health evangelist, my views will be primarily India-centric. But then, India constitutes 17% of the world's population. There is no world without India. Probably, IT specialists of Indian origin have contributed 25 to 30% to the spectacular growth and development of AI. Our views, therefore, are relevant. I may be a cynic, but why are all the AI companies spending so much effort, time, and dollars? We're talking of trillions, not billions, in promoting AI in healthcare. The answer is very simple. They want to milk a cash cow. CEOs of Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, in fact, most of the Fortune 100 companies have all publicly reiterated time and again that healthcare is perhaps AI's most pressing application. Naturally, after all, healthcare is probably the largest component of the economy and certainly recession-proof. The ROI the AI companies are talking about is not just achieving better health. It is running all the way to the bank. Dimension Market Research predicted that AI in telemedicine spending alone is going to grow at 26% compounded annual growth rate and will probably surpass 156 billion with a B by 2033. The percentage of physicians using AI has increased from 38% just 2 years ago to 66% 1 year ago, according to the American Medical Association survey released recently. However, health cannot, in my personal opinion, be reduced to a series of algorithms, however sophisticated they are. Medicine is not mathematics. It is not black or white. It is always various shades of gray. Responses to the same malfunction, to the same drug, could be different from individual to individual. The very fact that the Western world is spending billions of dollars in developing personalized medicine confirms it. Genomic analysis will be an integral part of individual healthcare soon. We are now in a stage of transition. Perhaps Gen Alpha and Gen Beta, born in an AI world, will not miss an eye. However, insofar as healthcare is concerned, humanoid chatbots cannot empathize, sympathize with a patient. The human trained brain has the capability to understand what exactly the patient wants, his, her socioeconomic status, and can give proper weightage to the various variables which have to be factored in when a doctor communicates and talks to a patient.
Thank you, Doctor. That is an exciting beginning. I'm expecting an impressive discussion. To start off, what are your views on the use of AI in telemedicine?
AI can be used in several aspects of telemedicine. The word telemedicine, the prefix tele, very clearly indicates that we are using technology-enabled remote health care to provide the digitally, wherever there is a digital health device, to make available any medical care to the remote areas. Now, AI can be integrated into various virtual healthcare services, which enables a doctor to remotely diagnose, treat, and monitor patients using data-driven tools. By leveraging the various aspects of AI we are all familiar with, computer vision, machine learning, natural language processing, MIoT, medical Internet of Things, and so on, AI has the potential to improve service delivery. Now, again, these systems can help optimize provider workflows, minimize wait times, directing patients to the most suitable care pathways. However, I have a point to contend with. This may be okay in a huge setup. The Kaiser Permanente, for example, one of the world's largest organizations today, uses telemedicine more than a face-to-face consultation. Again, AI algorithms can analyze medical images, CT, MR, X-ray, ultrasound, etc., remotely, and this would help a physician who doesn't necessarily have a radiological expertise. Another area we're talking of AI is AI-powered chatbots. I personally am not very comfortable with chatbots because I think, in spite of the very sophisticated programs, they cannot get into my brain. They cannot understand what exactly I want. Chatbots are excellent for handling routine patient communications, answer medical questions, and more administrative chores like facilitating appointments, scheduling, providing medication numbers, reminding them what to do, where to go, when to go, how to pay, etc., etc. And of course, AI can enhance data security because today there is a cybersecurity threat.
Focusing on the first touch point with patient, could you explore the advantages and disadvantages of AI for initial symptom checks?
Now, symptom checks, as I said, I may be biased, but the real world is not mathematics. Medicine is not mathematics. A patient may come to me with 8, 10, 12 symptoms. Now, unless I ask the patient leading questions, many of the relevant symptoms may not be volunteered by a patient. That is number one. 2, take the triage. What does a doctor do normally? When there are 5 or 6 symptoms, the doctor decides based on his past experience, on his training, on his knowledge. He takes out 1 or 2 symptoms and pays emphasis on that. In the real world, no patient comes to you with a single malfunction. I don't want to call it disease. I would rather call it a concern for his health. Nothing prevents a diabetic from having hypertension and a brain tumor. Nothing prevents a person who had a head injury 2 months ago from now developing migraine, and so on and so forth. In other words, coexistence of multiple pathologies is something which I really think the human brain, an experienced, trained human brain, at this point of time is probably preferred to a symptom checker. There are, at least to my knowledge, 3 or 4 symptom checkers commercially available. I think many of you, the people who are listening to this, may be familiar with WebMD, ADA, Healthily, and so on. Among the 3, as per literature, the ADA app is a user-friendly tool, and I understand it's available in 130 countries. I don't think it's abused in India. We have some Indian versions which are now just been introduced into the market. There are almost 6 million use cases of the ADA, which about 45,000 patients per day. But even this, the most sophisticated, has an accuracy of 70%. In other words, 30%, which is a huge, unacceptable number. If you depend only on AI, you run a very high risk of making an inaccurate diagnosis. So too, the WebMD, they have compared it with other institutions and they say it is 62% as good, etc. Now, what does a human being do when he comes with a symptom check? Now, of course, before I go into that, the advantage of a symptom checker is that it is available 24/7. You don't have to fix an appointment. You don't look at the watch and only for a couple of minutes. But then the disadvantages, I think, outweigh the so-called advantages. The advantages which have been promoted by the symptom checker companies include faster triage, personalized insights, cost savings. So this may not be relevant to a public health setting, particularly in a country like India. In the United States, many of my classmates are there. I understand a super specialist teleconsultation may cost anything from $500 to $750 for 15 minutes of a super specialist time. So obviously, you need to go to the right specialist rather than have one specialist say, okay, this is not exactly my specialty. You have to go to somebody else and so on. So a chatbot, a symptom tracker in that way will possibly lead you to the right specialist. But here again, the error in judgment could be as high as 30%. The most important disadvantages are a risk of misdiagnosis, technology barriers. Now, a major assumption which everybody is making is to have access to a symptom checker. You are digitally literate, you have power, there are no breakdowns of current, electricity, and so on. You are not only digitally literate, you are fairly familiar with how to use and navigate a symptom checker. And this presupposes a reasonable idea of digital literacy, which is not always available. Most important, I don't think a symptom checker will, for the next several years at least, handle complex or atypical cases. I always say that my patients do not read the textbooks. Even the studies which you do in a controlled environment, in a statistically valid, excellent results you may get, but this is in a controlled environment. This just doesn't work in the real world.
But Professor, excuse me, we also have the human factor, the human misdiagnose for some cases, even because of the lack of expertise for fresh graduate practitioners, right?
Absolutely.
So it is happening all the time with AI or without AI. We can have this kind of misdiagnose for some cases.
Absolutely. If I can diverge a little, though we are diverging, when you talk of mental health, there have been several reports in the media, not one, not two, at least a dozen, which I am aware of, about suicides having actually taken place because of the inadvertent, I'm assuming it's inadvertent, I don't want to name any particular company, but there is at least 2 companies against which a suit has been filed by the family, stating that when a discussion of mental health problems using a symptom checker, it ultimately resulted in the AI inadvertently, no doubt, giving suggestions which actually resulted in teenagers taking their own lives. So I think we are a long, long, long way, particularly when mental health issues are concerned. Of course, in all fairness, a symptom checker, if the right questions are asked, and more important, the right answers are given. I'll give you a simple example. Tuberculosis is prevalent in India much more than many other countries in the world. Cough, and nothing prevents a patient with active tuberculosis from also having a bronchogenic carcinoma. Again, as a clinician, I would ask the patient whether he was working in a mine. The patient may not think it is important enough to offer that. We have silicosis, we have miners, lung disease, and dozens of other unusual things. But unless the right question is asked, the patient will not be able to give you the correct answer. So yes, the point I would like to emphasize is symptom checker is a great tool and we need to work on it, but we have a long way to go. The other thing is, one thing which worries me tremendously is how did this AI validation come in the first place? I'm again talking of India. To the best of my knowledge, most AI which is now being used in the Indian healthcare system have all been validated in Western countries, meaning that the preliminary data was taken from Caucasians and there could be an inadvertent gender bias, discrimination, the low economic group. In fact, there are several papers published on how African Americans have not been included in major studies, and etc. So I think all these are important. Another important point is these AI algorithms were made maybe 3 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. Now take India again as an example. In another 5 years, TB will no longer be the major public health problem which it is in India today. Today, if a patient comes to me from an endemic area, the AI will certainly flag a red flag, and the AI will say, this guy comes from the most populated district in India where TB is very rampant, and therefore he would make a diagnosis of TB. However, if the same patient comes to me from the same district 3 years later, when the incidence and prevalence of TB have significantly come down, TB may not be the correct diagnosis. In other words, your AI validation, the basis with which you do all this, have to be looked at again and again every couple of years. I am not sure. This is going to cost huge amounts of money. I am not sure whether AI programs will be updated in such large numbers every couple of years.
Okay, that leads me to my coming question. Stepping back to the bigger picture, how is AI changing the way healthcare is delivered through telemedicine?
Now, again, as I said, to my knowledge, AI has made a tremendous influence in healthcare. But I am not really aware of AI making a major dent in telemedicine because it's a paradox. I've always believed that technology is a means to achieve an end and not an end by itself. The role of AI in telemedicine, at least in the emerging economies, is for a human being to appear on a screen and the patient hundreds or thousands of miles away. Most patients, including the educated ones, would still like a face-to-face consultation. I myself, given a choice, I would like to hear from the cardiac surgeon who's telling me that I need a bypass stenting. I would like him to hold my hands. I would like to talk to him, not see him on a big screen. So when this is so, the role of AI in telemedicine will strictly be confined, which is what is also being done in India now, for administrative purposes, for referring the patient to the right, for maybe help in analyzing images. See, diabetic retinopathy, we are already doing this in India in a big way. We have major projects with Microsoft and Google for reading chest x-rays, CT scans, etc. But the role of AI is only as a support, mainly an administrative support, documentation, recording. I understand there are AI scribes today, which are being regularly used in the Western world. Again, security, ensuring that whatever the transaction which is occurring between the doctor and the patient is recorded in a hospital information system, in an electronic medical record, and so on. But I do not think, certainly not in my lifetime, AI will ever be used for the simple reason there's no market. If I am a patient, already I'm in trouble because the doctor is 500 miles away. And if I am now going to talk to a humanoid 500 miles away, I will be very, very uncomfortable. So I don't think AI is going to be used in telemedicine at all, except for a long time, excepting for administrative purposes.
You have a very critical point of view regarding AI, and you have confessed this clearly in the beginning, and I totally respect this. But allow me to ask, operationally, can AI help physicians manage high patient volumes in telemedicine?
You are making a tremendous assumption here that patients have volumes and volumes and volumes to manage. Sir, in the real world, this is not true. There are thousands of doctors who are underemployed. There are thousands of doctors who are unemployed. If I was the health minister of the country, or if I was the bureaucrat in charge, I would spend more time in ensuring that the existing doctors are properly distributed. I'll give you a simple example. As a neurosurgeon, this was a paper I published 9 years ago. The numbers have changed, but it is essentially the same. 80% of India's neurologists and neurosurgeons do less work than what they are capable of doing because they all live in the metros, in Tier 1 cities, state capitals, etc. 900 million Indians out of 1,400 million, 900 million Indians even today live in areas where physically there is not a single neurologist or a neurosurgeon. So the emphasis is not in creating huge volumes. It just doesn't work like that. And it's not like buying a pizza. A patient wants to go to a particular physician because of his reputation, etc. He is prepared to wait for 2 months to get an appointment. He doesn't want a neural cardiac consultation. He wants to meet Dr. X, Y, and Z. So I think maybe this is relevant in many parts of the world. But I do know my own classmates, my own friends, my own contacts. I really don't think there are huge volumes as is generally believed. Yes, there are waiting volumes, but the volumes is because of the scarcity of doctors, not because an individual doctor. So I would spend all my effort and time and technology in ensuring that underemployed doctors, unemployed doctors are useless. Number one. Number two.
Sorry, doctor, allow me to interrupt here, but there is a lot of countries, according to WHO, that are suffering from lack of doctors, like South Sudan, Sierra Leone, the United States, even South Korea, and most of Europe countries are facing a lack of doctors. So this is somehow something worldwide, even if India is the exception, but it's happening.
No, sorry. Maybe I said the wrong thing. You hit the nail on the head. So we use technology not in increasing volumes for a doctor, in my opinion, should not see more than 6-7 patients an hour. So when I say increasing volumes, what I mean is trans-border. So we should be spending our time in making the underemployed doctors, make them available in Africa, Sierra Leone, all the countries you mentioned. What I understand now is the present AI is being used to make a single doctor see more and more patients. I don't agree with that. I think a doctor should not see more than X number of patients for the simple reason he needs to establish a contact with the patient. When I talk of volumes, I am talking of a single doctor managing more patients in his limited time using AI, which is being done. But I'm not sure that this is the right approach. That's what I meant.
Okay, this is clear now. Looking upstream to prevention, how does AI promote preventive health through telemedicine?
Oh, I think this is a great area, and I think preventive health through telemedicine can be used in large ways. In a very simple way, I used NI by promoting health literacy about 15 years ago, but I had to stop it after 4-5 years. So AI can be used in promoting health literacy, patient empowerment, knowledge empowerment. NHS has got a major system on this. And in fact, the chief knowledge officer of NHS 20 years ago made a great statement. He said, well, promoting health literacy is more powerful than antibiotics or surgery in healthcare. I totally agree. So AI can help translate languages. For example, let's say I have 30, 40 modules dealing with diabetes, hypertension, that thing, this thing, etc. AI can be used in converting it to regional languages, and AI can be used to deliver reliable, authenticated health information across the length and breadth of many, many countries, which a doctor would not be able to do single-handed. Of course, a doctor assisted by AI, this will make a major difference. So this is one. to early risk detection, predictive analytics. Predictive analytics are now becoming extremely careful, and telemedicine can do this in a great way. Say, for example, the human being may not be able to analyze my last 5 years of blood sugar, my HbA1c, etc., but AI can predict with a very high accuracy that I'm likely to develop complication A, B, C, etc. So all this could be deployed in huge numbers in rural areas, suburban areas, etc., and this final information given to human being. Real-time remote monitoring. This is another area where I was surprised to find that India ranks number 3 in the whole world in accumulating data from wearables. I don't know how reliable this information is, but I was absolutely surprised. So wearables, I do know, have become very common even in developing countries like India. So we are bombarded with data. So, and these wearables obviously are owned by a patient who is several 100,000 miles away from the doctor, a part of telemedicine. So real-time remote monitoring of voluminous amounts of data can be done using AI, conclusions drawn, and the conclusion alone sent through your internet network to the doctor. So this is something which is very helpful. Then, of course, we are talking of population-based preventive care, public health. See, AI in public health can play a very, very major role. And the word telemedicine is used in a loose sense of the word, where a public health expert physically located in one area using AI can institute preventive measures in regions far, far away from where.
When AI suggestions conflict with the clinical judgment, what escalations or override protocols should be in place?
Okay, there are two words here. One is protocol, another is regulations and legal aspects. Now, all countries are starting this. India has just started this. But unless there is a test case in the court, I think the rules will still be a dark area still. But at the end of the day, the gut feeling. Harvard Business Review published a paper saying that CEOs of Fortune 50 mergers and acquisitions ultimately depend on gut feeling, not on the voluminous statistical data. Similarly, as a clinician, if I have a gut, it's difficult to describe this. But if I think I'm not very comfortable with the opinion AI given, I think we should go deep into it. So there should be a protocol that the AI is at the best, can assist a clinician. It will make me think of things which I normally may not have thought of. Absolutely right. But I am very, very uncomfortable, and I think most clinicians are uncomfortable in an AI can read an image with far better than me. An AI can look at a pathology slide and make out changes which a human being cannot make out. But whether I'm going to use that, whether I'm going to decide on what I'm going to do from a management perspective, the AI can recommend management protocols, but the ultimate decision of whether this management is to be implemented for this particular patient at this point of time, it should be entirely left to clinical judgment. Because the AI programs, to the best of my knowledge, do not take into account what the patient wants. I'm 85 years old. I've had an excellent quality of life. I've been diagnosed with multiple secondaries. I do not want any more treatment. Or the treatment recommended by AI is proton therapy, which in India costs 50 lakhs of rupees, and the insurance company does not bear this. I think it's a crime. I would not even tell my patient that you have such an treatment option available, because I know that this patient will never be able to raise that funds. So this is where clinical judgment comes. I tailor-make, personalize, customize what AI tells me to suit that particular individual. And so I think the protocol should make it very clear that ultimately it is a clinician who uses AI, but the final judgment is based on a discussion with the patient by a human being and not by the world's most intelligent algorithm.
Turning to the guardrails and risks you have raised about chatbots, what are the key limitations of AI chatbots in healthcare?
First of all, the comfort. There are not many papers of how comfortable I am in dealing with a chatbot. As I said, chatbot is great for handling patient communication, facilitating appointment scheduling and things to provide medication reminders. This is a great area where a chatbot can be of tremendous help. But again, the best chatbots in the world do have limited medical expertise and diagnostic accuracy. And finally, the most important, the lack of human empathy and contextual understanding. The context in which it is done. The same problem, the same symptom in Chicago is totally different from what it is in a small town in India or in a very, very primitive place in Africa. So the context, chatbots can never, ever replicate the emotional support which I am able to give. Trust building. See, a patient and a doctor in my days, in my generation, was a question of trust. And unless there's trust building, there are enough scientific papers to show that when there is trust, the results are different, become better, even when the same medicine is given, the same radiotherapy and chemotherapy is given. There are a lot of things which we still don't know. And again, patient safety concerns. I don't think a chatbot will be able to ask the right questions to the patient, which a doctor can give. And what worries me is the multinational companies are promoting chatbots so aggressively and extensively. There's a risk of over-reliance. In India, we see boards in the big roads, signboards saying that this particular corporate hospital now has an AI cardiac evaluation system. Master health checkups, AI. Everywhere they use AI. In fact, just 2 days ago, I read in the newspaper that all the big corporate hospitals in India have invested almost 20% of their budget for the next 2-3 years on AI facilitated things. Everybody wants AI, and this is a very much concern to me. And unless we have more data, we are in a stage of transition. Data, privacy, security, all these problems will increase when we start using more AI. And of course, finally, ethical and legal complications. I don't think any country in the world has clear-cut directions. Now, if I use AI and something goes wrong with my patient files a suit, can I blame the AI? Which developer the AI is going to be involved as a correspondent? Alternatively, if I don't use AI and something goes wrong, can the patient sue me for not using AI? So these are all problems which are not going to be answered unless there are test cases. So I think it'll be a long, long time before we actually have clear-cut answers.
Professor Ganapathy, finally and briefly, for our audience, what is the take-home message you would like to send?
Well, that's a real difficult question. But then a clinician who is not AI literate is a menace to society. I honestly think is a menace to society. If I was the authority, I would ensure it's happening, but I would put this on fast track mode. I would ensure that every healthcare provider, be he the vice chancellor or be he a ward boy, is taught at his level on the use of AI. AI-enabled clinicians will be far better than a healthcare provider who is naive about AI. A healthcare delivery system which does not understand and accept the limitations of deploying AI is also doomed for failure. Trust is a key word in healthcare. A combination of AI with various other factors like wearables, IoT devices, telemedicine platforms, etc., is going to make a tremendous change. Regulatory approvals, infrastructure gaps, all this have to be addressed. I would like to conclude by being a little philosophical. A quote from Lars Lexel, the inventor of the gamma knife, which at that time was the world's most sophisticated medical technology. He said, I quote, "A fool with a tool is still a fool." I belong to a generation where we were taught that technology is a means to an end and not an end by itself. I shudder to think of the day when the good old-fashioned 20th century doctor, whose primary reason for existence was to provide tender loving care and wipe the tears of the patient, becomes an endangered species. Maybe AI-enabled humanoids will have algorithms where the algorithms will incorporate empathy, sympathy, and virtually wipe the tears off. And I am very concerned that the aggressive marketing of AI I hope, will never ever replace God-given NI.
Thank you, Prof. Ganapathy, for sharing your invaluable expertise on the evolving interplay between AI, telemedicine, and telehealth. Your insights illuminate both the possibilities and responsibilities as we navigate this new frontier of healthcare. To our listeners, if you found this conversation insightful, please follow Development Aid Dialogues for more discussions that matter, and share this episode with your network. This has been your host, Hisham Alam. Until next time, stay well and stay informed. Goodbye.